Welcome to the Job Shop Show, where we talk with the owners, suppliers, partners, and customers of custom manufacturers. Listen and learn the secrets of top-performing job shops, the tools, techniques, and backgrounds that have made them successful, all in the quest of raising the bar for custom manufacturing. I'm your host, Jay Jacobs. This episode is sponsored by Peerless Parts, connecting buyers and suppliers of custom manufactured parts. The Peerless platform is a secure, ITAR-compliant, cloud-based manufacturing system for suppliers that reduces the amount of time spent on sales, estimating, quoting, administration, and order processing. It offers seamless integration with the accounting and ERP software tools that shops already use, such as QuickBooks, E2, and JobBoss. Peerless Parts was founded with a mission to make manufacturing more accessible by streamlining the quote-to-cash process. Spend less time quoting and more time selling. Shazam! Welcome, my sheltering friends, to the Job Shop Show. Your host, Jay Jacobs, here to help you get through your workday with a conversation with an incredibly hardworking shop owner, Kristen Carlson of Peerless Precision. They are out in Western Massachusetts. Peerless Precision is a very, very high precision shop. This is a description from their website that describes what they mean by high precision. We are extremely competent when tolerances of 0.0001 thousandths or better are required and have delivered one helium light band in flatness, 0.00005 thousandths in roundness, and 0.003 thousandths in wall thickness. Wow. So we're going to talk about how you actually do this, Kristen. And I also think what's sure to be enlightening is getting into what it is like to be a female in a male-dominated industry. And I love how Kristen is committed to growing her workforce, the time and effort she puts in there, particularly to bring those under the age of 30 into her shop, and the commitment to manufacturing, custom part manufacturing in general. So much to get into, to discuss. We'll see how this all unfolds, and welcome to the Job Shop Show, Kristen.
Thank you, Jay. It's good to be here.
So we are recording on a Monday after a stay-at-home sheltering weekend, and I actually sat down Saturday morning and asked myself, Jay, if you look back 2 or 3 months from now, thinking about these big chunks of time that you had on your hands, what would you regret not doing if you in fact didn't do it? So one of my ahas was looking at this pile of books that I've been meaning to read. So I took the time out on Sunday and read a book, nonfiction, cover to cover, start to finish. So what are you doing with these big chunks of time on your hand, Kristen, assuming because your shop is still very active that you have these chunks of time?
Oh, absolutely. I've got definitely more time nowadays in the afternoons and evenings since, all events and meetings have been canceled. So I'm filling up a lot of free time that I'm not used to having. So I crochet. And, I've actually finished 2 blankets in the past 3 weeks, and I'm starting another one. So it's a relaxing, hobby for me, and I just enjoy doing it.
Mm-hmm. How long would a blanket typically take you then?
Me, months, sometimes a year, because I can't sit down and do it for more than a few minutes at a time,
Right.
And, since especially because it was raining over the weekend, I put on I'm a baker as well. So I've been, baking more cookies and practicing, my cake skills and everything.
Uh-huh.
And, I sit down and I'll have a baking competition show on in the background while I'm making a blanket. So, the other thing I've actually been able to do is get a head start on my vegetable garden for this year.
And how what do you mean by that?
So I have an indoor seed starting greenhouse and everything, and lights in my basement. So
wow.
I can grow vegetables, inside if I need to, but I like outside the best. So I've gotten a bunch of seeds started, and I've got some that are 3 or 4 weeks into their growth period already, and another set that I just started last week, so that when it's finally planting time around here, I'll have a big head start on my vegetable garden.
So you're out in Western Mass. Do you have a very high fence around your garden? Because I know the animals love to come sample what you're growing.
Yeah, I have a 6 foot fence around my yard. It also helps keep my American Staffordshire Terrier, Bruno, contained, and he keeps all the animals away.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they probably don't want to mess with him.
No.
So looking back, and I want to talk about you as a female owner in a job shop. How did you get started in manufacturing?
So I've grown up at Peerless Precision. My dad purchased the company when I was 15 in 1997. He was a
Hmm.
serial entrepreneur, had started a couple of businesses when we were living out in the Chicago area, and decided instead of starting another one from the bottom up, why doesn't he look to buy or purchase a company that was a little bit more established that he could really turn into something of his own.
Hmm.
So he found Peerless Precision, um, bought it. At the time, it was mostly a grinding and lapping shop. We did a little bit of manual milling and lathe, but not a whole lot of CNC yet. Um, so we had this opportunity to purchase this company that had a lot of potential and then take it to the next level. I started
Did,
working. Sorry, go
excuse me, did he have any background in part manufacturing before he
ahead.
bought Peerless Precision?
Not really. The one manufacturing experience he had was working for a casket company out in Eastern Mass when he was right out of grad school. So, but
Okay.
before he started starting his own businesses, he was a financial, like usually a CFO. He worked for
Hmm.
Service Master probably for about 10 to 15 years as their CFO in the various locations. So he had the financial background. He was a math major and a business major, or math
Hmm.
major through his first 4 years, and then he went to get his MBA later on. So
So not the traditional path to get into
no, and that's
manufacturing.
okay.
Right.
Sometimes non-traditional is the best way to go about it. You know.
You are 15 years old then. Your
Yep.
father buys a shop. What
Oh yeah.
happens next?
I started working there on Saturdays. I would go in with him for 4 hours, and I was the shop kid. So I would be sweeping the floors, climbing into the machines to clean out all the metal and everything. They would put me on a bandsaw. Um, if they were really backed up on cutting up material, I'd do the finger check with my foreman every hour to make sure I hadn't lost any. It was his he'd walk up to me and say finger check, and I'd hold both hands up and he'd say good to go. So that was how I got into it. I tried machining itself when I was about 16. They put me on a drill press, and I found out machining itself wasn't for me, but the whole aspect of what we did has always intrigued me. I'm one of those kids who grew up, I was one of those kids growing up building, playing with Legos all the time. My dad and I would build furniture together in the basement. Him and
Hmm.
I built my first bicycle together.
Hmm.
So, that whole tinkering thing. Um, Later on when I was in college, I would come home during the summer. And then after I was done with college and I did shipping and receiving and started getting into purchasing. So it allowed me to learn the other side of what we did, and get to know all the parts and our vendors and our customers.
Hmm. Did you go right into the shop from college?
Yeah, pretty much. I worked at Fleet Bank when I was at college, and then
Hmm.
when I was home, I would, work at the shop. But pretty much when I was done with college, my dad said they had just lost their shipping, receiving, purchasing person. Said there was an opening. You want to come and work for the company again? I said sure. Why not?
Okay. And how long did you stay in that role?
So I was in that role for about almost 2 years. At the time, I was not only working with both my parents, but I was living at home with everybody, and I'm the oldest of four. So
Hmm.
it was, I was 21 at the time. I was living with my three younger siblings and both my parents, and going a little stir crazy. Um, so now who's my husband, Mark, and I had friends who had moved to San Diego the year before. So we had friends who moved to San Diego in 2004. We went out to visit, and then we actually moved out there in 2005 to kind of get away and see. You know, my big thing was, can I survive outside of the family business? You know, with that as a crutch and everything, and make my own path instead of adhere to someone else's path.
Were you in manufacturing in San Diego?
No, I'm one of those Jane of all trades. I always figure out what I need to do and then become the best at what I do. So I started off, I became a merchandiser for a gourmet cookware store and cookies.
Oh, wow.
I worked in retail in high school, so I had a little experience with that. I ended up managing the warehouse after about 6 months. Things went downhill within the company, and I left, and then I became a buyer for a fire alarm contractor. So I was the buyer, inside sales. I was service coordinator. I wrote up contracts. Sometimes my boss at the time taught me to be an auto mechanic, and I ended up, I would go on job walks with the salespeople and help them bid jobs. You know, we ended up putting a bunch of stuff online, and I built our online website at the time so we could sell, so our customers could shop online for what they needed and see what we had in
How
stock.
did you learn the skills to program a website?
I went to a 4-hour HTML code seminar at one of the community colleges in San Diego. So I did it all based on HTML code. We didn't have any software at the time. I learned how to write the code and then went from there.
You are different than the trajectory of a lot of second generation owners in that typically the one of two paths will occur. The second generation owner will always have worked at the shop and no outside work experience, or they may have worked in the shop when they were growing up in high school and maybe summers in college, but they then after college go somewhere else and work a while and then come into the shop. But you have an interesting perspective, I think, because you actually went right into the shop along the lines of the first typical owner, but then you said, no, I'm going to do what the second type of second generation owner would do. So from that experience and background, what would you say to a shop owner who is looking to bring one or more of their children into the business? Do you think, what are the pros and cons of going straight into the business or getting some experience working for others?
You know, when you go straight into the business without any experience outside of that, you end up potentially having tunnel vision because you only see how it's done there, and you don't get any outside views on how other companies might operate of the same size, maybe not the same industry. I personally think it is extremely beneficial for anyone who works into a family business to get outside experience because it gives a different perspective and it allows you to take off the blinders and look at the big picture, think outside the box. Both places I worked in San Diego, they were both small family-owned companies, and I got to see, just through my working there, what I thought they did really well, what I thought they could have done better, and then I took all of that back when I came back to Peerless, and I used it at my shop once I made the decision to come home.
How much time would you say is or a range of time to be away from the family business before coming back in? What sort of makes sense?
I'd say I was gone for almost 8 years. I'd say someone needs to put a few years minimum, in between leaving and coming back.
And probably work at more than one company.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one who ever liked to bounce around a lot. Sometimes, the cards just didn't lay out the way we
Hmm.
wanted to.
Sure.
So, but I don't think a 6 month, excursion outside of the family business would do a whole lot of good. It doesn't allow, anyone to really learn how the other company operates, or, you know, what, what the business looks like.
Hmm. Great. What
So,
brought you back into the business then?
so, my dad always wanted me to be doing what I'm doing now, which is one of the reasons I fought it too. Um, he was a stubborn man, and I'm just as stubborn as he was. He was diagnosed with colon cancer in 2009.
Uh,
When it was actually kind of, my dad was always the pinnacle of bad timing. So he decided, we were on a family vacation to Cancun, and he dropped that bomb on me there. And
wow.
he had actually asked me at that point, if something were to ever happen to him, would I come home to either help my mom decide to sell the business or keep it running? And I said,
Hmm.
absolutely. It's also, oldest child, responsibilities and everything. And it's just the type of person I am. He went through, chemo and surgeries, and he was given a clean bill of health at the end of 2010. Was told not to come back for another oncologist appointment for a year. And then at the beginning of 2012, it had metastasized and come back. So
Mm.
at that point, he was terminal. And again, the king of bad timing, he called me at 8 o'clock in the morning in San Diego, or 8:15, and I was at work. And he called me
Hmm.
up to tell me that what had happened. And because he wanted me to be able to sit down when I heard it. Again, it's I look at all this stuff and I just think it's funny now, because of, knowing who my dad was, and the, trying to do the right thing, but not always the best at timing. Uh,
Yeah.
Him and I hadn't talked about our agreement in 2009 at that point, but I went home that day and I told Mark, my husband, what was going on. And I said, I don't know if I'm gonna go back to work at Peerless, but whatever happens, I need to move back home. To not just, because I wanted to be with my father, but I needed to be here to support, my mom and my siblings as well.
Right.
And so about a week later, my dad actually called me and he said, I probably already know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask you one more time. Will you come home to help mom with the business? And I said, absolutely. And my mom said my dad had forgotten about our deal in 2009. He actually fell out of his chair because he couldn't believe that I said yes.
Wow.
So ultimately, while the circumstances were definitely not ideal on my coming back here, I am very glad that I did. And I will say it now that I don't have to say it straight to his face. But my dad was right, and he knew what I would be good at.
Hmm.
And I like to say that he's probably a little jealous because I'm taking the company to new levels that he never would have imagined.
I'm sure he'd be very proud of you, Kristen.
Yeah, thank you,
So,
Jay.
yeah. You are, you had a, beyond jumping right back into the business, you obviously have another uh, hurdle to overcome, which is the fact that you are a female in that male dominated world of custom part manufacturing. What can you tell me about your experiences there, and maybe how it's changed over the years, or your perspective? We'll just throw it out there.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely not always easy being a woman in the manufacturing world. For a long time, anytime you wouldn't see any women on the shop floor, even running the companies, they'd all be working in the front office, as account,
Mm-hmm.
reception, purchasing, whatever. Um, I'm very lucky that we've had a great group of people that work at Peerless Precision. And when I came back in 2012, 90% of the people there I had known from either when I was 15 or when I worked there after college.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew, most of them knew how vital it was for my return, for the health of the company. So, there were some people within the shop, and they actually are no longer with us at Peerless for various reasons. But the view was always, well, she's just some silly little girl and she doesn't know what she's talking about. And I would hear that, and I say, challenge accepted. Um, I speak to students a lot, and a lot of schools and different groups in our community will bring just a group of girls in with me. And, I always tell them, I said, look, I'm the oldest of four. My dad wanted a boy and he got me. And I'm like, and that's why I have the backbone that I do now.
Hmm.
You get the people who think that you don't know what you're doing, because you're either, well, she's the boss's daughter. She's just some silly little girl. She's going to run the company into the ground.
But you had worked at the company, as you said, 90% of the people knew you. You had been there through high school. You've worked there full time after college, and it should have been pretty obvious that you knew what you were doing. Maybe you didn't have the responsibilities, but I'm sure whatever role you had, you did very well.
Yeah, I was also the kid who got up and moved to California. So I left.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of unknowns. Unknowns from our customers, unknowns from the guys, from the banker. I had no idea what was what I was doing. I just knew that, because you're also dealing with, stepping into this role, stepping into the whole, what does she know and everything, and then trying to grieve for the loss of my father at the same time. So
Sure.
it was like the perfect storm of fog, brain fog, pretty much.
So what's the story you would tell yourself back at that time to get you through the day and not back down, not accept I don't want to say defeat, but concede to perhaps the beliefs of others?
Yeah, well, luckily for me, I'm good at ignoring that kind of talk. You still hear it, and it still hits you right in the heart, pretty much. But I would tell myself, because I doubted myself for a long time, and I did not understand what other people saw in me and why they relied on me. And, but now I see it, because I take chances, I take risks, I take smart risks. And I would tell past Kristen, just to know that everything you're doing, is right.
Mm-hmm.
Be confident in that. Know that you are who everyone thinks you are, and you can do this.
And is that what you told yourself back then too?
No, I would I would say, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing right now, pretty much, but we're gonna figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Or if people would be coming, I'd get questions from other owners all the time, and I just couldn't understand why all these other shop owners who had been in the business for 10, 20, years, maybe some running a company longer than I've even been alive.
Yeah.
And I never understood it. And I started working with a professional and personal coach / consultant about 3 years ago. And one of the first things that she told me was that I don't know how to take a compliment. And I agreed with her. I was raised not to, be able to take a compliment. And her working with her and getting to that point, and then all of a sudden realizing why the company is doing so well, why the customers tell me that they prefer working with me over my father. Why I didn't have anyone quit, when I became the president, so nobody jumped ship on me. It's just all these things that have happened that I could never, I guess, give myself a pat on the back for. And now I can, and now I know why people come to me and why we're doing so well. And, I understand why the customers, well, they say they always loved working with my dad. They like working with me a lot better.
Why is that?
Yeah. And I can accept that now.
But why do they say that?
Oh, well, so my dad was one of those people who would tell you what you need. I'm the one who listens to what you need, and then I tell you if we can do it or not.
Okay.
You know, I want my
Yep.
customers to tell us what they're looking for. I'm not going to tell you what you need. I don't know what you need, but you have to tell me what you need. You have to tell me what you're looking for, and then we'll provide it.
So it
Um,
sounds like you ask a
I
lot of
also
questions and you're a good listener.
I do. I do. My dad was a big talker, and the art of listening is a very valuable skill to have. The other side that my customers really like is I always bring whatever swag we have, or donuts, like when we go for a meeting and everything. And the first time I did that, I had gotten beer, cozies to give
Hmm.
out instead of pens. So I brought, a bunch of my customers one day cozies, and they're like, "Your dad never brought stuff to us." I'm like, "Well, you're not dealing with my dad anymore."
Never underestimate the swag or the donuts
Oh,
or
yeah.
lunch. It's so appreciated by the customers.
Yeah, I try and add, the humanity factor of to what I do.
Hmm.
It's hard running a company. It's especially in my shop, and I'm sure this is the same for a lot of family-owned businesses, but when you grow up with people, you're friendly with everybody. And
Yes.
but then you have to draw that line too, where you can be friendly, but you can't really be friends with them because
Hmm.
there's unfortunately, and I can't say anyone at my shop would do this or never do this because it's happened before, but as soon as that line gets crossed, it's when people see that people tend to see that opening where they can take advantage of that friend factor
Hmm.
and everything. So we have that clear line where, look, I'm friendly with everyone, but I'm still the boss. This is my company. The buck stops with me. You know,
Right.
and and I'm not going to be put in that type of position.
Hmm. The before we get into some other areas, I just have a couple of the questions about being a female in
Sure.
the manufacturing world. Do you, well, first of all, how has it changed from 2012 to today? Do you think it's gotten easier or better, or how would you describe it?
I think it really depends on where you work. I haven't really seen a huge increase in the amount of woman-owned shops around.
Right.
Um, but you are starting to see more and more women on the shop floor.
Hmm.
Um, so in 2012, we didn't have any women on the shop floor. There was one in shipping and receiving, and then my mom and I up in the front office. Now we have 6 women, young women on the shop floor. And I think we're one of the highest concentrations in our region. We have a really good support system within our shop. One, it's I bring them in. I'm a good role model for breaking
Hmm.
down barriers and everything. They also, anyone in the company, they know I have an open door policy as long as the door's not closed, and come to me for anything. And I tell these young women specifically, like, look, this is a shop environment, and sensitive ears not apply, first of all. You have to have a bit of a I have the mouth of a sailor. And
And I've heard that, so I can say yes.
they're talking to Ben, I'm sure. um, and but also, our guys, they've got wives, sisters, daughters,
Hmm.
they're very respectful towards women. If
Hmm.
anything changes, I want to know immediately so I can put a
Right.
stop to it. Even if it's outside vendors, or I had to pretty much ban a one of the electricians firm or electrical contractors from going into specific rooms because I was getting reports.
Mm.
um it's not like people are hooting and hollering at you on the shop floor. um
Right.
I haven't I think I'm very lucky with the team that we have, and able, in my ability to being able to bring them in. And I've
Well,
also become,
that's a that's
yeah,
a definitely a reflection though on the shop owner, whether
yeah,
it's you being a female shop owner or if there's a male who owns a shop. The what's acceptable, what's tolerable comes from the top down, and if you don't follow what you say, then it's not going to happen. So kudos to you for creating that environment.
Thank you.
And as you were saying it, it made me think that perhaps there's not a lot of female shop owners now, but the way that a lot of shops are started is from someone who has an entrepreneurial spirit, who is a individual contributor or maybe a manager, but they're in a shop environment. And then they go off on their own. They might buy the machining center and literally put it in their garage. So you're helping to create the foundation for future female
Mhm.
shop owners, because if we don't have them working on the floor, then where are they going to come from?
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So along those lines, the workforce is a huge area that you're involved in, and the bringing the young women into the company. And I say young because you just wrote a blog specifically on workforce recruiting, and I
Mhm.
encourage folks to go to your website to read it. And by the way, what is your website so we can just share that with the audience now?
It is www.peerlessprecision.com.
And that's Peerless.
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things that you are really focused on is bringing people who are under 30 into the shop. And you are a very high precision shop. So that's courage right there, because typically, from at least my understanding, and I want to talk about high precision later, but high precision, a lot of it is art as opposed to science. So typically that means that skills and experience that happen over time. Yet you have quite a few folks in your company who are under the age of 30. So I want to talk about the training that you do and maybe the onboarding, but first maybe step back and say, how do you get folks who want to apply to work at Peerless Precision?
Sure. So that's almost a two. Are we still focusing on the younger kids or just people in general?
Let's just talk about the workforce in general, because we say
Yeah.
that there's a skills gap, and I think that you're addressing it quite effectively. And then we'll talk about the training afterwards.
Sure. So so anytime we've got an open position that we're either adding one or trying
Mm-hmm.
to one that's recently been vacated, the preference is always to try and find someone with experience first. Um, because then there's less training that
Right.
has to be done in order to get them to the point. So we'll put ads out locally. I've started using Indeed.com, and that's actually been pretty successful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's always a certain amount of time that we can hold a job open for an experienced person before we start looking towards co-op students and internships, or sometimes even adults who have gone to a training program through one of our regional employment boards or mass hire.
Mm-hmm.
um, if we have a position, an ad out that hasn't really gotten any good bites for 3 to 4 weeks, then we have to start rethinking what we're looking for, and can we afford to train someone for the next 3 or 4 years to get them to that point.
Mm-hmm.
uh, because training in itself is it can put a big strain on the people doing it,
Mm-hmm.
um, because we don't have dedicated training staff. Every time we bring in someone, whether they're entry level or not, there's always initial training, and it's always done with someone else within that department. So the new hire will be set up on a machine while the person training them is on the machine right next to them, so they're there to answer any questions.
Mm-hmm.
um, as far as when we start getting into trying, when we do have, I guess I'd call it some free time, quote unquote, where we can really dedicate a lot of time to training an intern or a co-op student, I just have to call up one of the schools in my area and tell them what I'm looking for. And I always,
Mm-hmm.
specify we're looking for someone who wants to run a CNC machine or wants to get on the manual machining side. I need someone for inspection. because I want the co-op or intern student that's being sent my way to be able to do what they want to do and fit
Hmm.
the description. So I don't want someone who's interested in inspection to come in to run a CNC machine and vice versa. They won't succeed. Um, the big benefit of hiring students specifically is that they're not tainted by working at other places for decades, or it's like a clean slate, and
Yeah.
they're not so set in their ways. You can actually mold them to be the employees they need to be and the employee that you need them to be.
Do you see them viewing working at a shop now as a career path?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
today, and maybe today more so than when you came back in 2012? Is it changing the perception?
Yeah, we're there's, let's see, since 2012 I have hired, I think, 6 or 7 co-op students or interns, and only one of them still doesn't work for us anymore. And it was
Mm.
just, it wasn't meant to be.
Hmm. Yeah.
um, all of them. I'm one of those where I vet my new hires a lot, and I get the referrals from their teachers. Make sure, almost handhold them through the first year, to make sure that they are going to be a fit. Because I don't like to, when I hire, I do my best to hire for keeps. Um, and
What are a couple tricks that you can share on vetting these types of folks?
it's I walk out on the show, vetting them. It's just, I want to find out for the kids. I'm talking to their teachers a lot.
Mm.
Um, and just to find out, are they, what their absences are like, how are their grades? I mean, they usually can't go out on co-ops or interns without having a certain grade point average with a good attendance record. So that's usually the least of my worries, but it's, if they have past work experience too, I also look to see, knowing that they're younger,
Hmm.
okay, so have you worked at 5 different grocery stores, in one year, trying to get an after school job. And I look for, I try to find work ethic patterns. I actually hold a work ethic seminar occasionally, work ethic 101, for anyone in my shop who's younger than me, and that sometimes includes like 35-year-olds. So
Wait. What? Why? Why did you come up with this, and what is covered?
so it's basically because I was hiring a lot of students, and you get these kids coming in on a co-op, and they are just doing so well while they're still in school, while they're on their co-op, and all of a sudden they graduate from high school, and it's like, oh, do I really need to show up on time? Maybe I'm not going to pull my pants up all the way, you know stuff like that, things that I know quantify a good work ethic. Oh, if I'm late, maybe I should call and let them know why I'm going to be late instead of just rolling in, or I do need to call out. I can't just text someone and tell them I'm not going to come into work. It's they're all this work ethic is enforced while they're in school by the teachers,
Right.
and know that if they slip at their co-op opportunity, the teachers will they'll get notified, and then they'll get on probation or lose their co-op. So they do everything they can, because now all of a sudden
Mm.
they're not in class, one every other week, and they're getting paid to do what they want to do, machining and everything. And then the graduation happens, senioritis, all that stuff.
Hmm.
I remember senioritis very well. And but now all of a sudden they're not getting graded on how they perform at work anymore. At least they don't think they are. So when I started seeing that with
Mm.
my recently graduated co-op students, some people who you would think would know better, but just did not have a good work ethic, I pulled, again, it was for everyone who was younger than me. And at the time I did it, I think I was 33, and that included a 32-year-old. And I,
Hmm.
pulled them into the conference room there. I think there were 7 or 8 of us. And I just said, I want you guys to tell me what you think constitutes a good work ethic. And I'm going to write it up on the whiteboard while you're talking, saying it. And then we're going to go through the list. And I don't remember half of what they told me, but none of it was what you consider a good work ethic. Wrote them all up on the board. Then I turned around and I looked at it, and I said, these are all great, but none of them are right. So, and then we go to, put in an equal list of what constitutes a good work ethic. And it wasn't rocket science, come to
Yeah.
work, come to work on time. If you're going to be late, call out all that stuff that we were all raised with, but the, current generation isn't always being taught that.
Yeah.
Well, I did end up having one of my machinists quit after that, the 32-year-old, because he was trying to throw someone else under the bus and I called him out on it, so
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting. So the workforce development, you're involved in a lot of organizations, and from reading your blog, I know that one of the reasons the teachers will probably talk to you or return a call is that you have spent a lot of time in the high schools. You open your shop up to tours. Uh, I'm sure there's other ways that you're involved in your local community. Plus, though, you're involved with quite a few manufacturing organizations.
Mhm.
And what would you say to other shop owners who perhaps don't see that as a good investment of time? What are they missing?
So they're missing the opportunity, one, to directly influence, not only how vocational schools are teaching their students, but also getting traditional high schools back on board with bringing the trades back in.
Hmm.
Once you start reaching out to schools, working with them, doing tours or speaking events, you end up being one of the go-to companies where any of the schools will call you when they've got the perfect co-op student or intern for you. So I'm, even though it's hard to find experienced people, I have not had a shortage in the past 8 years of being able to get, at least a co-op or intern into my shop.
So, in other words, you have to not complain about the workforce shortage, but actually get out there and network with the people who are connected to the people who are looking for jobs or maybe looking for jobs or being trained to fill a job.
Yeah, that's right. Be the change that you want to see happen. It takes us that.
Hmm.
I hear so many times that, well, the schools aren't telling their students all these opportunities, and or the parents don't know, and I'm just like, look, it's up to us,
Hmm.
because we're the ones in it. We're the ones who are facing this, and we've been facing this workforce shortage crisis for years. This isn't anything
Decades.
new. Yeah, decades, absolutely. Um, and it's, some people rather complain. There are people out there who just like to complain. And unfortunate, that's not going to solve anything. We have to be the change. We have to make sure that everyone's aware of the opportunities that come with being in machining, and we have to change the narrative.
I think as well, and it sounds like you've done this, but we were a big supporter of the vocational school in Nashua, New Hampshire, Nashua Community College, when I owned Rapid, and they have a advanced machining technology program. They got a huge donation from Haas, from machining centers, which is great because we used Haas at Rapid, but
Mhm.
they had CAM software that was probably 7 years old. I don't even remember what package it was. And I heard about that and I said, well, we're using Mastercam, and I want the students who are coming out, I don't want to have to spend the time training them, getting them up to speed on Mastercam. So we made a donation of several seats of Mastercam. I forget how many seats, but it was roughly $7,500.
Mhm.
And for us, that was a good investment. It truly was an investment. It was a donation to the school, but it was an investment for my shop standpoint, and one that I thought would have a great return for us as well as the manufacturing community in general around us. I was so surprised. They told us that was the largest donation that had been ever made for uh, from the private company to
Mhm.
the community college, because the Haas Machining Centers were purchased through state funds.
Right.
And that just $7,500 for a company my size wasn't a lot of money, but it made such a huge difference. So I just want to share that with other job shop owners. If you are, let's say your inspection department, they have a quality program. If you want them to use a particular type of equipment in your inspection department, then consider the donation, or even donate a used piece of equipment and buy yourself a new one. So at least they're using the same brand and the same sort of tools.
Right, right. And I completely agree with you. I mean, we don't always have, I mean, we run our machines into the ground most of the time, so we don't always have a old piece of machinery that we can donate.
Right.
Not usable. But you know, like, there's definitely, you know, I'm on the advisory committee for Westfield Technical Academy. So that's the vocational school pretty much in the backyard of Peerless.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, one of the bigger shops in our area will, you know, they'll donate their, one of their maintenance technicians to fix the machines at the school so they don't have to pay.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't have to be product. It can be time. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, you know, we go through our raw stock at least once or twice a year, and anything that's out of aerospace specifications, we give them a list. What do you want? And it's yours, you know, or old tooling, gauging, anything that can be spared.
Right. And for them, you may think that it's, well, for whatever reason, you can't use it within your shop, but it is quite possibly much better than anything they have at the school.
Oh yeah, I mean, and the programs are generally underfunded in general.
Yes, absolutely.
To get approval to buy new machines is like pulling teeth. You know, and you can't always wait for a grant to get approved, or maybe the grant got awarded to another school in the state. There's a lot that goes into it. So anything that we can help with, we always do.
Beyond the local schools, you spend a lot of time sitting on different organizations' advisory and steering committees, and in particular, the NTMA, the National Tooling and Machining Association, is one that you're pretty heavily involved in. Why spend so much time there?
It was another thing that I was kind of fathered into when I first came back to Massachusetts in 2012. My dad had been a board member and I think a 2-time past president with the Western Mass chapter, and he said, "Start going to these meetings with your mom. It's going to be really beneficial for you." And I said, you know, I was never a big participator, you know.
Okay.
You know, I had gone to meetings for my boss in San Diego, but I never, you know, really got a lot out of it. So I started going to these board meetings, you know, and it exposed that experience itself. And then going to the events, membership meetings, tours, I got to know people. And then, you know, all people who wanted to see us succeed. You know, after my father passed, some who wanted us not to succeed because they wanted to hire everyone at my shop, you know, but regardless, it was all of a sudden I was part of this community that I didn't know existed. So, you know, first it was board meetings, just going to the board meetings, going to the events. Eventually my mom became the alternate board member, and I got voted in as the full board member. I think it was 3 years into, no, maybe after 2 years, they voted me in as vice president because I said, sure, I'll do it. And then, you know, I became the head of the chair of the programs committee, started planning events. We've been holding an annual pig roast at my shop every August it's going to be, if we're able to have it this year, this will be the 14th year we've done it. And then after my dad passed away, it used to be just a free fun event. And now we get a bunch of sponsors. We get more sponsors than we ever did before. And when my dad passed away, we all voted at the board that it would be used as a fundraiser for a memorial educational fund in his name. So it kind of has gotten a little bit bigger since then. I, you know, play in the golf tournament now, and, you know, or I've been doing that for a while. And then vice president, became president. I will say very upfront, I don't know if any of my board members will hear this, but I'm on my second term as president. Both times I got voted in at a board meeting I was not at. I knew it was going to happen, but it was just the principle of it, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I can't do
Well,
another term after this one, but I got to take some time off.
sure, but you've been involved with the NTMA for a long time. What would you tell a shop owner who's not a member of the NTMA or maybe another national organization? What, at least for a period of time, and if you want to become an officer, great. If you want to become the president in the Western Mass chapter, even better. But what are the advantages of joining the NTMA?
As one of our members told me when they joined a few years ago, he was sick of being on an island by himself in this huge ocean.
Hmm.
When he found out there were all these other islands surrounding him, why not come together? So he felt, when he wasn't part of the association, it can be a very lonely existence. Running a company, running a machine shop in general, all of a sudden you're part of this any association that has to do with, what your work's related to. And now you're a part of this community. We share best practices. Sometimes we just have complaining sessions.
Hmm.
It's, so you realize that what you're going through, 1,000 other business owners are probably going through the same thing. We all have the same pains. We all deal with the same, ups and downs. Sometimes business is good for a lot of us and it's down for others, and then vice versa. And you get to talk through all that. I've used the relationships that I've built through the NTMA to also benchmark things in my company. So,
Hmm.
you get we open our doors to each other all the time.
Hmm.
And we know that we're not stealing any proprietary information. We actually don't. We have, I'm 99% sure it's actually written in our bylaws that the members can't poach each other's employees. So we've got this community where we're not stealing from each other. If someone from one of my member shops applied to a job position that I had open, I would still probably interview them, but I'm going to go ahead and call my colleague first and let them know so they have the opportunity to counteroffer or find
Hmm.
out why they're leaving. You don't get that unless there's a group community that you're part of. It's helped when we were starting our lean transformation. I'd go into other shops that were doing more lean manufacturing than we are
Hmm.
and share their ideas. Here, take this form, feel free to copy it. It's sharing and, it's working together. You find out that, while we're all competitors, we're not really competitors. We can be collaborators.
I don't think many shops can compete with you on the tight tolerances that you hold. So this is perhaps a good segue. We called ourselves a precision shop, but we didn't want to do precision work. And although we could do precision work to a point, nothing like what you're doing. So your shop, again, hits tolerance, the 1 helium light band in thickness. What the heck is that? I had never heard of that
I
before.
mean, it's
It,
a flatness, and I wish I had.
flatness, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
yeah.
no. It's actually. I wish I had the chart in front of me right now, because the chart that shows the different helium light bands, we actually have this special light box that we're able to magnify into surfaces to see. And if you go like 1 helium light band, it will show lines in the material that are slightly wavy, and that's
Wow.
almost almost completely flat. I don't honestly, off the top of my head, I do not know what the plus or minus tolerance is within that, but we're talking about angstroms.
Right.
Zero helium light bands will, when you magnify it, all the lines will be completely straight without any curvature in them whatsoever. It's important, like for mirrored surfaces, sometimes with matched sets for airplanes. And it just depends. I mean, we can achieve it. So
Okay, how do you achieve it? How is that done?
through lapping, either roll lapping or hand lapping. So, I'm sure everyone out there will know. I mean, lapping's a very slow rate of material removal, and it's
Hmm.
100% manual. So there's a certain feel for experienced lappers. Well, they're, depending on the material they're working on, what the lapping compound is and how they're achieving it, whether it's round or flat, they'll just, they'll know that after 5 seconds, it's going to feel, slightly more flat. And then they're only going to have to do 5 more seconds. I wish I could, apply some like scientific reasoning to that. But whenever I talk to the guys in my lapping room, it's like, well, you just know how it feels. So.
How old is the youngest person in your lapping room?
How old is the youngest person in my lapping room? He's going to be 30 this year in October.
I would imagine that is a skill set that it just takes so much time to, as you said, using the right type of media with the right type of wheel and all those different variables. Is your shop air conditioned?
Oh yeah. I mean, our lapping room is actually, our lapping and our inspection rooms are the most environmentally controlled. So lapping, we have to stay within 70 degrees plus or minus a few, and then right around 40 to 44% humidity to maintain those flatness readings, the millionth of an inch tolerances that we're working with. I mean, the whole shop is air conditioned, but that one's really controlled.
So are your customers, when they do quality assurance on the parts you're bringing, they know, is that a standard from your shop to their inspection area, that temperature and that humidity, so
Yes.
that it's all consistent when you're measuring parts?
Yeah, it is. And then, they get a full, for anything that goes through our lapping department where we're working to, 1 helium light band or millionths of an inch intolerances, they get a full inspection report on every part to show you what the measurements are, at the shop in the controlled environment. You have to account for shipping and transit times and everything, put it back in a cooler room to let them, go back down to size. We will get occasionally saying we're not getting the same readings you are, and it's like, well, how long has it been sitting, in the environmental controls? Have you put it back in there? And it's their specifications we're working to, and sometimes we do have better inspection equipment and capabilities than some of our customers. So
are there special requirements for the materials that you're buying? You mentioned for bar stock, the tolerances, if it didn't meet the tolerance, you might donate it to the shop. So is it all, I think you do a lot of defense and aerospace. Is it American made materials? Just tell me about the materials and what's different and special about the starting point to make these types of parts.
Sure. So 90% of what we buy is it's from the United States. I think 10% of our material ends up coming overseas, sometimes from Italy. I think mostly from Italy. I haven't looked at a certification in a while, but because we are defense, everything that's steel gets DFARS applies put on it right away. So the preference, our material suppliers always go towards domestic first, unless there's a really cheaper option, that we don't have to wait 3 weeks for. It just depends on what they're stocking. All of our material, aside for what we purchase for one of our customers who's not aerospace or defense, we purchase to aerospace material specifications, AMS specs, or mil specs. So when we go through our material container to see what's out of spec, it's because a revision on one of those AMF specs has changed. And once that revision is changed, we have 18 months from the change date of the revision to use that previous revision. So after that, we can't use it anymore. So it's yeah. So we don't actually buy for stock. We don't buy material specifically to keep on the shelf. We order as we need it, but we always have odd ends. So
on the other end, when you're shipping the parts, do you put them in a bed of feathers, or how do you protect the parts?
No, I mean, so we've got customers that have certain shipping requirements, and we do whatever our customer wants us to do to, within reason. But, a lot of them, they get shipped in their own plastic tubes or containers. Sometimes there's special military grade packaging we have to put it in to prevent rust. We do make this matched piston sleeve set made out of tool seal, so they like the set gets matched, and then they are heat sealed in plastic bags with desiccants inside both pieces so that they don't rust, and then put into a plastic container as a matched set so that they don't get mixed up with anything else. Sometimes our customers are okay with things just being in bubble wrap. And I'm a big fan of, having worked in shipping and receiving for a long time myself. There's no such thing as too much bubble wrap to protect your parts. So we have more shipping supplies than I would like to admit to at the shop.
The last thing you want is the part to come back because it was damaged in shipping.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. This has been a lot of fun, Kristen. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today. And I think our listeners have been given a lot to think about. I really appreciate how you were open about being a female in the custom manufacturing world, the sharing of your teachings of the under your age with what a good work ethic is. I liked how you asked them first what that was. That's a great way to do it. It gets them engaged. You're not just talking to them. So that was something I picked up. I think that would have been effective in my shop because we certainly had some of the issues you were talking about. And then just the whole workforce, you have a choice. You can complain about it or you can do something about it. And I love how you're doing something about it. So do you have a challenge regarding creating a larger workforce for custom manufacturing that you want to throw out to other shop owners?
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, if you're asked to talk to a group, if you're asked to do a shop tour, if someone from the state wants to hear from you because you could speak to, what a difference that this could make, take those opportunities. It's up to us. I challenge everyone out there to do their part to change the narrative, because even though we've been working on this for a long time, machining is still viewed as that dark and dirty, grandfather's workshop, and no kid of mine's going to work there. I grew up like that too before my dad bought the company. So
Right.
Us, we're the ones who can change the narrative. And if you get enough younger people in your shop, they will help change the narrative too.
Anything else that we didn't cover you want to share with shop owners before we leave them?
Oh, these are definitely challenging times we're in right now. I'm sure most of us, we're gangbusters right now because of the work that we do already. So we're very lucky. But don't let anyone out, despite, no matter what type of time we're in, you guys know, they all know best on what their companies can do. Don't let anyone tell you can't do something. Don't listen. If anyone in your shop is, down talking a new customer that you're bringing in, they're not confident that, you can make any money for it. Trust your gut, trust your judgment. You can listen to them, but ultimately we're the ones taking the risks, and there are risks to take.
Absolutely. So we told folks to check out your blogs at peerlessprecision.com. How about finding you, Kristen? Are you on LinkedIn or anything like that? Facebook?
Yep, I am on LinkedIn and I am on Facebook. And I'm Kristen with an I, not an E.
Right, and that's Kristin.
Yep.
Well, and that'll be in the show notes. Well, folks, that's it for another stellar episode of the Job Shop Show. I encourage you to leave us a 5-star review on whatever is your favorite podcast platform. And please email us with questions, comments, suggestions. We want to add value to your day when you listen. You are our customer, and we want to know how we can help you up your game. So stay healthy, keep your team healthy, and all of the best of luck in keeping the spindles turning and those lasers cutting. Have a super day.